welcome.
I think I'll give people to like 12:03 and then I'll dive in. And this is a casual one, so it's a lunch and learn. So if you have your lunch, feel free to eat it. Hi, Kate. She was there. She's muted. All right. Well, I think we'll start and people can come in at any point. So thank you for those that have come in. We're going to do a more casual presentation today since it's Valentine's Day. Of course, it's for the love of video, how production works. One of the questions many of you may be asking is, why are we doing video right now? And it's because video has been listed as one of the top marketing trends for 2024. So basically, if you aren't doing video, you probably should be doing video. We figured before we really dive into the content, we would share with you one of the videos that members of our team participated in the creation of, just to kind of set the tone. This is one of those videos where the concept kind of speaks for itself.
Seems like the audio might not be coming through.
One of the things that we kind of love about that video, again, is you don't always have to have a script. You don't always have to say anything. Sometimes what you're seeing speaks the most for you. Whoop. Good Lord. Okay, so why are those of us talking? So many of you know me. I'm Melissa Harris. I'm the head of operations here at Pinwheel. What a lot of you probably don't know about me is my background, which is I actually started my career outside of, graduating college in live sports television. So I was involved with the creations, to date myself, of Major League Soccer and helped start the Major League Soccer television network. I also traveled as the TV production manager with the men's and women's national soccer teams, culminating in World Cup '98, where I was also the producer for a half-hour World Cup recap show that aired on ABC. Since then, I have been working in video for 20 years. I still sometimes do some freelance remote sports, but also as an agency producer, been involved in producing corporate videos ranging from kind of short, very simple animations to, about 10 years ago now, maybe more, was the agency producer for the Corning video A Day Made of Glass, which a lot of people have seen. It's got 27 million views out there on YouTube. So I've been involved in video for a really long time as a producer, and that's why I'm talking about this. And then Jeremy has joined us. I'll let Jeremy introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is actually really a cool thing to do. I've never actually been able to sit and sort of talk with a group of people interested in the production process, post production, as far as improving things and working on pipelines is great. My experience with Melissa actually goes back about, I'd say, 10 years. We've been working with corporate video mostly. I've done quite a bit of documentary filmmaking, working with History Channel, Travel Channel in the past, and also doing live corporate events, everything from like Intel to Sony, that kind of thing. And then also doing a lot of explainer videos, character animation, um, and then getting more into art direction as well. So helping companies with their brands, helping the motion, UI, that kind of stuff as well. So just kind of a wide variety of things. Started out in the Bay Area about 20 years ago, um, just kind of kicking around music videos as well. Kind of just self-taught for a number of years, and then just working my way up in the industry. So that's when Melissa and I ran into each other. I think it was through an agency working with eBay as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a short little intro for me.
So Jeremy and I cover a lot of the ends of the spectrum in terms of actually doing the production work and the planning, the managing, the scheduling, the budgeting. So the two of us can give a pretty good idea about how things work. So okay, here's what we're going to cover today. And just, this is a casual lunch and learn. So the hope is that we're going to get through the presentation side of things quickly. So this can be more of a discussion where you guys can ask questions. Feel free to drop any questions into the chat as they come up, and then we can also dive into those and then just have a chat about video in general, because I love talking video. So when you talk about video, there's a lot of different types of video that are out there. There's animation. And again, animation is a category with many subcategories. So there's characters, think your Pixar's or your cartoons or anything in that realm, to ones that are just pure motion graphics. And that's just things moving around, logos. It can be like a pole that spins, all sorts of things. So animation can mean a lot of things. And then within animation, there's even further levels of whether you're doing it in 2D or 3D. And we're going to send this deck out to everyone afterwards. There are some example videos in here that you can look at any point you want to. And then after we go through the deck, we may come back and watch some of these as well. Stock footage. So the world of stock footage has changed a lot lately. There is so much that is out there and available for use online, ranging from things that you can get on Getty to ArtGrid, which is one of my personal favorite stock footage sites. And you can put together an extremely polished, unique looking video with 100% stock footage. And a lot of people may not even know you're using stock. So stock footage has come a long way and is great. And then there's live action. So sometimes you just need more and you need to actually go out and do a video shoot. And that is a different breed altogether. You need locations or a studio, you need casting. It can be a lot less forgiving because obviously once you shoot the video, you have shot the video. So we like to think of these three main buckets as the types of videos that are out there that you can do. And then within each of those buckets, there are more buckets. There's always buckets. Okay. Oops. Video styles. So within each of these, putting together a video, like one of my favorite things is a client will come to us and say, we want a video. How much does a video cost? My answer is always, well, that depends. Let's go through and start thinking through what it is you're actually looking for. And so we think of this as dials that you can turn. And the first one that you kind of have to decide is what route you're going. Are you going animation or footage? Because that's going to take us down two very different paths. So Jeremy, do you want to go through the animation path, the two kind of subcategories there?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, essentially, one of the main categories is, motion graphics, and that's going to encompass quite a bit of video styles out there. So we have, the character animation obviously is a whole separate category of that. So that's kind of the two, realms. And then within those, you're going to have usually like, a 2D style, a 3D style. Here we have facial expressions, rendering. So, and then within those, obviously there's nuances and there's sometimes crossover. So it's good to just sort of usually have a reference or something of a 2D style or a 3D style once you have your character animation or your motion graphics animation selected as a style that you want to use as your type. So, um, and then obviously we talked about stock versus original, and then Melissa, did you want to go back to the locations and
Yeah,
props for a
so
second too?
look, when you do your own shoot, you know, there are certain things you have to think about, whether or not you want to shoot it in a location. That can be in a house, outdoors, all sorts of things, or in a studio. You could then have a green screen, which then brings different things to it, or it could be in a studio where you have dressed a set. So there's a lot of nuance and question when it comes to video. And so it's always a really complicated piece in that planning phase when you're figuring out when whether you're going animation or footage, where you know there's just layers and layers. And then on top of that, there's another group of things you have to think about. So are you doing voiceover, or this could even go for on-screen talent? And then it's, do you want to use union talent or non-union talent, which that you can often find non-union talent that is phenomenal and much cheaper, or union talent that will have more recognition and often more experience, but they cost more. And it changes how you do casting. Music, you can customize your music. You can have music composed to your video, or you can do needle drop music, which is sort of like stock music. Or you could take needle drop music and customize it, the hybrid between the two. Same thing for sound effects. Graphics is another one. How graphic intensive do you want your video? And always you know, this one's sort of a no-brainer, but the longer the video, the longer it's probably going to cost. So lots of dials that you can play with to get to the video that you want that works within your budget. But to make a video work, one of the most important things is the process, right? And we've sort of broken down the process in here into just the most basic levels. So the brief. And this is true for any project. You will know we at Pinwheel are brief evangelists. We love a good brief. But knowing what it is that you're looking for, what you're trying to accomplish, and then things like, what have you seen out there that you like? What have you seen out there that you don't like? These are all really, really important things for ensuring that when we start the project off, we start it off on the right foot. Video is one of those things that is so much less forgiving than, let's say, web content, because web content you can revise and massage and edit and change as often as you want and as many times as you want. Video, once you are past certain phases in here, any changes you want to make are going to have cascading impact to timing, to and probably to budget. So having a really tight brief that everyone who is involved in the project is behind before you even start is really important. The next one is, you know, you go into the script. So we'll sit down, we will concept and write a script. And with the script, usually we'll provide, it's not just going to be, this is what we're saying, but some proposals on how we would visually be saying it as well. And again, that sign off on the script is key, because once you get past this script phase, things start moving really, really quickly. And if you need to go back and redo the script, you're going to have to redo everything else. So we like to think of these lines, as it were, on this process overview as gates. And once you cross that gate, going back is really, really not the best. So we've got your script, and we're going to do a storyboard. If it's an animated video, we will probably show you an animation test as well to make sure that the style of animation and the detail of the animation is meeting what you're thinking and your expectations. So the storyboard is taking the script and then frame by frame, hopefully, laying out the visuals that you're going to see. Obviously, for a live shoot, the storyboard is going to be more representative than real, but for motion graphics and for animation, it really starts to bring to life what the final video is going to be. So we will have, if it's a character illustration, the actual characters and the clothing that we are proposing, with the facial expressions and the hair color and the hair length, all of those things. And so that storyboard phase is also a really important thing before you go into the production phase, because it really is going to kind of nail down the visual look of what your video is going to be. And then let's say it's an animation or motion graphic, we'll record, and there is a VO, we'll record it. And the reason why we do it at this phase is everything after that is timed. So that voiceover track, we're going to time the animations that you see to what the person is saying. If it is a live action shoot, at this at this point, we would go out and actually do the shoot. And then comes editorial. And when you're in editorial, there'll be a few reviews that you go through. We call them rough cuts. They're not rough in the sense that they're not polished or really showing you the final. It's that they're that steps along the way. There might be some polish that comes in near the end, but these are really giving you a sense of what that video is going to look like. And again, this is another really good gating thing. Each of these, just keeping in mind, like if you're in the editorial and you decide you don't like the animation style, we got to go back. And then lastly is the final mix, and that's where you take all the graphics and all of the visuals and all the audio and all the sound effects and you mix them together so it is a final wonderful looking video. The other thing in here that's really important with the process on video is, of all the work out there that we do, video is one of the most important ones to be collaborative, because each of these steps is such a gator that if you are not working closely with your client, you're going to run into trouble. And as a client, it's really important along the way that if you're unsure or you have questions or you're not fully there yet, that you speak up and you're clear with the agency. This is not about hurting feelings. This is making sure that we are in a really good place before we move to the next step. Because again, video has to be collaborative because it is so final in some ways once you get to each of these steps. The other thing is, and this one's sort of a funny one, but with video, it's one of the few that momentum is really important. And that momentum isn't just from a creative brain standpoint, but also a lot of times with video, especially if you're doing a live shoot or you're working in an edit house, you actually have to book that time and buy it. And if you need to shift your schedule after you have made a commitment to those dates, sometimes you actually have to pay for that date and the next date that you do. So schedules and timing and momentum are really important in video as well. So that is a broad overview, and I love all the questions coming in, and I promise I am going to be answering them as we get to the Q&A. So what we thought we'd do is, now that we sort of talked through all the steps, we'd show you 3 examples and what the process was for getting to that video. So I'm gonna hope this works and show, this is a character animation video. You can see we've got a little bit of information down here, just letting you know how much the video cost to produce and about how long it took. And then these are the key steps that were taken along the way. So we're going to take a moment and hope that mute is working. We don't need to hear it, but just walk through. So this is a character animation video. Jeremy?
Yeah.
You want to kind of talk a little bit about the process here?
The process, yeah, absolutely. So basically the idea of the character animation video is you really have to nail down the style initially. It's really important to, one is to stay on brand, and then 2 is to, flesh out the script in the form of these characters and make it feel like it's living. So one of the things we had to do, working on this project was, and talking to the folks involved, was they had to basically get, from start to finish, they had to get a creative person involved to do the sketches, right? So you have to get someone who's going to do the illustration, who can work with like an art director, a creative director, and then basically get that into storyboards, like Melissa was saying earlier. So you want to have those basically developed. So sometimes you do something like a style frame or 2 ahead of time, and those get approved by a client, and then you go into the storyboards and create the whole storyboards for this process. So that was what happened with this, is that the animator worked hand in hand with the illustrator and then created these assets. And then once those assets were in hand, then all the animation could happen in the process of each revision as well. Things could be tweaked a little bit. So that's kind of the overview of as far as the style of that. And then basically, yeah, there was just a few, a few reviews, and then of course the music and um, the animatic, and that was done as well. So, and then of course after that's all finished, then you go to the final mix and delivery. So that's kind of the basic overview of that project.
So the next one is an example of using 100% stock video. It did use, and I can unmute so you can hear, it had needle drop music, and then had a VO track, and then applied to it is some visual branding elements just to kind of make it more ownable. So this one was about a $36,000 project, took about 2.5 months. The storyboard for this particular video was extremely important because in it, you're approving the stock videos that you're using, the graphic overlays, any copy that is on screen. So it was one of the most important sort of steps in this particular video process. And I've got the page muted. It's like one of those days.
Search of better. Better for our families and communities. Better technology, better lives. At Cority, we're no different. For over 3 decades, we've imagined new ways to empower people, helping organizations make profound positive change. Providing for the safety of their people. All people. For the sustainability of their businesses and the well-being of the planet. It's that vision that led us here. To the edge of new opportunities, from artificial intelligence, drones, IoT sensors, and augmented reality, we envision new ways to empower better. We're helping environmental, health, and safety professionals solve their most complex challenges and empowering better business performance with the Cority One platform. We simplify the complex and empower those who are transforming the way the world works to empower better. Empower better green solutions. Empower better cures. Better planning. Where progress doesn't conflict with the environment. And we protect our ecosystems. Better protection for the planet and safer workplaces. Where people come first. And knowledge takes a front seat. This is Cority, empowering better for people, their livelihood, and the world we all share. The pursuit of better has never looked so promising.
So assuming the video wasn't too choppy with staggered sound, apparently, for everyone, you can see that was a combination where the timing was really tied to the VO, and the music we managed to get really tied to the timing of visual changes in the video clips, and also that the stock footage that we were able to find out there is actually looks pretty good, which is a lovely change from how things used to be with stock. Okay, so the last one is a live action video. So this one was shot on site at actually Airbnb's old offices in San Francisco. We found influencers to serve as our kind of talent, and came in and just had it be more of a personal, there wasn't necessarily a script. We had questions for people to answer, and we left it very open because we wanted it to feel more natural as opposed to scripting answers for people. So the storyboard for this one was more about the location than anything else, and making sure that we were finding the right spot that conveyed the right feeling. The casting was key. I mean, what made this video work were the people that we brought in to talk about using TripIt's trip planning tool. And then it was all about prop sourcing, the shoot, the editorial. So this was more of a post-production because we had to edit everything together. So we did this as a one-day shoot. It's a very long day. Load in was about 6 in the morning, and load out that day at the end of the shoot was probably 10 o'clock at night by the time we were all done. And then we're in an edit suite after that for, I want to say we were in the edit suite for about 2 weeks putting everything together. So this one cost about $45,000 and took about 4 months to pull off.
A lot of people equate travel with stress.
Things go wrong, and you can be incredibly organized and things will still go wrong.
You have no idea if you're actually going to make it.
There's a set time that the conference is starting. If I'm not there, there's problems.
I want to maximize the time I have, very efficient and guaranteed fun.
There were plane tickets and there were hostels.
There were some close calls and then there were some missed flights.
Oh, whoops, I can't get out till tomorrow.
I have to have it all organized or else it affects me, it affects the conference, and it affects my livelihood.
I do not like to not have a
I
plan.
used to have to write all these notes down, pieces of paper with flight numbers and connecting flights.
Like 1,000 printouts of different hotels. Literally, it would be in a rubber band in my bag.
I had an actual binder, which is so nerdy. It's like, come on, binder doesn't fit well anywhere.
Tearing out magazines and articles about different places they recommended and then going to them.
Separate emails that I would have to try to track down and print out.
Too many papers and notebooks here and there. It was a mess.
I was never actively looking for something to replace my rubber band technology. But when somebody mentioned TripIt to me, I tried it and saw how easy it was.
All your confirmations, hotel, train, airplane, all that stuff funneled into one little app. So you didn't have to go mining for.
Oops. Well, you get the idea. This video decided to stop, but I mean, basically, you know, these are real people, real stories, sharing about what they loved about the product. So brings us back to everyone's favorite question. How do you price a video? And my favorite example I love to give is when you go to, let's say, a contractor and say, hey, how much does it cost to build a house? They're probably going to say to you, do you have a blueprint? Do you have plans? How big is the house? What kind of finishes are you looking for? Do you want it contractor grade? Do you want high end? So it's that famous, it depends side of things. So overview, video, a lot of different ways you can do video. How you decide to approach it is really going to impact how you price it and how long it's going to take. So things that I always want people to remember when they come into a video project is flexibility is important. Don't come in with like, well, I need it in 2 weeks and it has to cost this much and it has to look like this, because you might not be able to get that. Let's sit down. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's talk about all the different ways that we can approach the video to work for you. And then move forward on it as a group. So open, honest, clear, back and forth communication is going to be really important. You as a client are as much a part of the video production team as the video production team is. So what we're going to do is I am going to escape out of here so I can actually look at the chat and not look off to the side of my screen, which I think is quite annoying. And unless people need it up, I'm going to stop sharing so I can even see people's faces, which is more exciting. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to go into the Q&A. Oh, it's fun to see faces now. So Todd asks, what are some of the things you think about when deciding between animation, live action, or the combo? It's actually a good question. So I'd say a lot of times for people, there's the question of how much of a personal connection do you want to make? Is it important for people to see themselves in what is on screen? And oftentimes in that instance, so like with TripIt, it was, you could see yourself as one of those people. You didn't even need to know who they were. Like one of those guys, I forget his name, it's been a while, in the blue button-down shirt, has been to all 190 some odd countries that there are in the world. That's his big claim to fame. And so you didn't even need to know that about him, but you connected with him in a silly rubber band story. So that's one of those times where anything other than live wouldn't have really connected with the audience. Other times it's, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to demonstrate something that is existing now? Is a personal connection important? I think, Todd, I don't know, you probably have some thoughts also, since you have vast video experience as well, for those that don't know it, in terms of that question.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a hard question sometimes, because in terms of cost implications, you could do an animated video that is just as expensive as any, live action video. In fact, sometimes live action can be less expensive. It just depends. It can be the type of story that you want to tell. So it can go back to that, or you can even go back further and think about who your audience is, and that might provide some clues. But sometimes it's not easy to decide on those things. And as an agency, we might pitch several ideas, some of which run the gamut.
And then Kate, with your question on the specific channels where certain types are more successful than others, I think it's less about the channel and more about the message you're trying to get out there. Authenticity in things when you are trying to sell a particular product might really sell it, whereas a fun animation might actually do better in other ways. I think it's more about what you're trying to do and less about where you're trying to do it that makes a video resonate with people.
I would like to add to that we had another client when we sort of invited them to this lunch and learn, and that was their sole question. They were like, "Are you going to be covering this?" And the answer is not in this one, but since you asked it, I think it's a great clue that maybe we should do a lunch and learn on that topic alone. How to distribute your video for the biggest bang for your dollar.
So one example, one of our clients, so Experian, and I know Stefan and Aubrey are on the call, are doing videos now, embedding into their articles, and they're using their writers as the talent on these videos. And it's a brilliant way to go about it, because these are people who are respected, knowledgeable, and known by the audience as understanding the topic that they're talking about, and are thought of as experts. And so in those kind of instances, anything other than live action wouldn't make any sense, right? Because these are real people that have authority on the topic, and you're just building on that. Whereas, let's say you are doing a video and you're trying to tell the story of how a coaching program might work, you might not want to, at this point, use real people, because one, it's really hard when using real people to represent a wide gamut of folks. And so an animation may actually do better, because the coaches aren't well known. And so kind of creating these characters that can appeal to anyone and are kind of race and gender and fitness and all sorts of things agnostic might actually resonate better. So again, it's really important with the story, which works better in terms of video type. So music is a great one. Music can run the gamut. TripIt was custom music, but it was done, I mean, this is one of those, there's so much nepotism, I think, in video. It was the agency producer's brother-in-law composed it and recorded it for us. So that one we got for a steal. Whereas needle drop music can range anywhere from $300 to, we just did one recently and it was $35. I've done, so for Corning's Day Made of Glass, that custom music was, I want to say, about $2,500. So it's just kind of, it really does vary. And a lot of that is also going to go into the length and how customized you want it. Like, are you just saying, look, this is the one we like, but the drum track is too much. What can you do to soften it? Versus, here's our 2-minute video, write music to every second of the video so that it helps emphasize things. Or if your brother-in-law happens to be a composer and musician, which is always helpful.
Yeah, or you can always license music from like a famous track. We licensed Bill Withers' "Let's Get It On" for a spot about food, and it was about $25,000 to get that track. The music that was in the TV.com video that we couldn't really hear, but it was this sort of French cafe style music that was custom made, and that was only $500. Like, not bad.
That was the cost of the TripIt video as well, music.
Yeah.
Todd, you had a question really quick here about the importance of sound design. I think that's a great question. It's actually, yeah, it's really important. It really makes a difference, I think, in a lot of videos between just kind of mediocre to good versus really great. So not every video needs sound design, but I think especially for like character animation videos or motion graphic heavy videos, I think it's really important to have that extra layer on there. So yeah, I think, does that answer the question somewhat?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that it's one of those things that's super underappreciated.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't even realize that's something that needs to be done. Along with things like color correction, like it's
Right.
just part of that improves the impact of the video and the believability of the video, and it is just so critical.
Yeah.
But it costs money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say too, just as far as timeline, going back, Melissa, to kind of the process. Some of these videos that I've worked on, that the better ones tend to kind of start and end within like a couple of months. I'd say from like the concept to completion. And we've had this where sometimes if it gets the timeline does get moved out too far, it can kind of just, like Melissa was saying, break the momentum up a little bit. So it's just something to keep in mind. I mean, there's some videos now that are done so quick that, like the social media, the shorts and so forth, that it's like a week or two. But those, of course, are different animals. So yeah, I don't know if that helps. But.
Yeah, I'd say the most extensive video that I've worked on was The Day Made of Glass. It was almost a $1.5 million video. But from concept to delivery was about a 5-month time frame. And there was very little downtime in there. And that is from selling the video in to Corning leadership, actually getting that budget out of them, and then everything from manufacturing a plexiglass cover for a car's dashboard so we could turn it into a touchscreen, to everything else. I mean, I was rewatching the video today and laughing because all the technology stuff we were joking around and making up for the video, about 80% of it is now actually real, which is almost terrifying. But that momentum was really, really important for getting that video created and pushed out. And it keeps everyone engaged and doesn't give. One of the things that we have found, and some of our clients that are on the call can nod to this, is that sometimes leadership, as you're getting down the road on video, starts getting nervous because it's like, well, God, once we do this, it's done, and then we've done it, and then, well, I don't know. And so it sometimes is actually beneficial to keep pushing because it keeps that from happening. It's a nice little subtle thing to do. The faster you move, the less chance there is leadership will start panicking that you're actually going to finally have a video for them. Those were the main questions that were in there. Does anyone have any other questions or things they want to talk about with video?
I was just gonna ask, and this question is really sort of for everybody here, because the question is, like, when do you show your CEO the video?
Yeah.
And that is a tricky one. I'd be open to hearing from anybody, but part of the problem is you show your CEO the finished piece, they might have some changes or some concerns or whatever, did they read the brief? Did they know what we were trying to do? Like, all of those questions come into play here.
I can start this by just letting folks know that a lot of times what we suggest with leadership is make sure they buy off on the storyboard. And that's because the storyboard is going to incorporate what it's going to kind of look like, how it's going to feel, and the script. And so that's often when your CEO is going to have commentary, and then show them probably not the first rough cut, but the second rough cut, the one right before final production, with the reminder that they have approved the storyboard. So I'm a big fan of when you show them the rough, that you provide them the storyboard at the same time. So it's like, here's the storyboard that you approve with the script and everything. Okay, remember? Now here's the video that was made from that. That's just the experience that I've had that has worked the best, knowing that CEOs, of course, are fickle and will often change their mind.
Does anybody have any questions in their mind?
I have a question that is sort of tangential to this conversation, but one that I'm dealing with right now. Todd and Melissa, you're painfully aware, is trying to get leadership to buy in on video without having seen A, the finished product, and B, what the results are, and not having any internal benchmarking for what good results even look like. I don't need like a rubric for selling video to leadership, but what I'm curious about is just anecdotally any examples that you might have from your careers where you got via your direct contact at a company, you help them work through the process of getting leadership to buy in, at least on a test, to prove, like, for proof of concept, so that we could then scale up. And that's really like the chicken or egg problem that I'm kind of dealing with right now at my company.
So just to clarify, it's buying into the concept of.
It's more like the message I keep getting is we should be doing video. Why aren't we doing video? We should have been doing video 3 years ago. And then when I say, okay, well, here's the path to doing video, they're like, whoa, like, we don't know how much it's going to cost. And if we spend this much, what's good ROI on that spend? And then how do we, like, what's critical mass to then have enough videos in market to have a benchmarking for success versus failure? And then how do we repeat the success? And in my career, it's been like, you just keep trying it until you realize it's failed, or you start to see traction, and then you scale up, you do more. But I've got this skepticism that I'm fighting against that I can't really crack right now.
Yeah.
It's the conundrum of our times, I guess.
I mean, I think video is hard because a lot depends on what is your goal. I doubt a lot of people went out and bought Corning glass, which you can't buy, from a Dame at a Glass, but they loved it so much, they made a second one with an even bigger budget, which was a continuation of the story. And they wanted us to do a behind the scenes on how we made the video. Like, they were so excited. But again, it's not like you can go out, like Corning glass for the longest time was the glass on the top of your iPhone. You don't go out and buy just a sheet of the glass and be like, hey, look what I have. But it helped raise the brand awareness in some ways, that they aren't just your grandma's cookery. They're now this technology glass firm. So getting them to buy the first one was a lot of faith. And then getting them, then they were all in because it did so well and spent gobs of money on video. TripIt, that was a really small spend. They were a new brand. And I think it helped for them, their ROIs, they saw subscription. I wish I could remember the number, but subscription jumped based on the fact that people were starting to, it helped with that brand awareness. So people knew what TripIt even did. So a lot of times it's finding that leadership who's got a little bit of guts and is willing to take that first leap so they can see that it does do something. I think in today's era, it should be easier because video is everywhere and attention spans are shorter. And video can communicate so much more to the short attention span person. And I mean, that's why it's one of the top marketing trends for 2024, is because people are getting less and less patient. They don't want to read, and they don't want to, they want the quick and dirty. And so I think, you know, in trying to sell it in, a lot of what you need to figure out is, what do they want from the video? Are they just looking for awareness? Are they looking for straight metrics where they can say, well, this video gave us $2 million worth of customers, and we can see that correlation? Because I think you could say both can happen with video, but it's hard to sell it when you don't know maybe what they're hoping to get from it.
Yeah, that's a big problem that we have internally. Is since I'm in the marketing organization, obviously conversion is the primary metric, but then it's like, also don't do any damage to the brand, and it should be brand accretive. Like, people should see it and be like, oh wow, they're doing this new thing. And it's like, if you can do all three of those things on every video, then more power to you. But it feels like that's a really hard needle to thread. But maybe that's just marketing challenge.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the complexity that, you know, Stripe has, video is a great way to communicate quickly what a complicated thing is. So that's one of that. I mean, for me, that's why I love video so much, is you can have a really complex topic, and in 30 seconds, possibly, I would hope, you can communicate that in a way that everyone can understand. Whereas when you're trying to write it, it doesn't work as well. And so I think, you know, maybe trying to sell in, picking something really, really complicated that they've had a hard time explaining, and having that in video form that's sort of like, oh, wow, I get it now, might be a good approach. Is because video is just, it's really great at taking the complex and simplifying it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember we did a how it works video for DocuSign, and I think it was probably at $30,000. They had a new product launch, and, you know, sort of how does it work? And I don't know if we could say afterwards what the ROI of a how it works video is. It's like, well, now a lot of people understand how your product works.
Yeah.
You know, but you can do page metrics, and, you know, you can track conversion that way, I guess. Certainly. But then there's the brand impact, which is really hard to measure. Although you can do. Yeah.
I could add one quick thing on that, is I think a lot of people, and video obviously can be very expensive. We've talked about the Corning video, but it has gotten a lot cheaper to do shorter, quicker explainer videos than it was in the past. So your leadership might still be thinking, oh, this is going to be $500,000.
Yeah.
And it's not. So you can maybe take those baby steps of showing, like doing explainer videos on different features that aren't a huge investment, and kind of gain traction that way, and they'll see the benefit. And then you'll get more spend for bigger stuff as it goes.
That's a great thought.
Yeah, I mean, like that, the Cordy video in the past would have been, you know, it was a vision video talking about what they envision for the future. And those are the kind of things that used to cost a lot. And it was able to be done for about, I think it was under $35,000, which may still sound like a lot, but for a 2.5-minute vision video, that's not so much. And that's the joy of the improvement in stock footage that's out there, is you can really create beautiful things with nice motion graphic added to it that is very ownable, and get something special for not what you used to have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, that's a great point too. One of the things that's worked well in the past is, actually last year, is working with a client who they kind of wanted to do a new thing with their brand. And so we basically worked on developing, you know, kind of a look and feel on a smaller scale, kind of smaller budget. And then once they like that, they said, hey, we want to, you know, do more of these videos, or, you know, add more complexity or more time to to them in the future. So that's a good way to approach like a new campaign or a new video concept as well. Work.
My favorite ROI story, by the way, is the Dollar Shave Guy video that went viral a few years back, and I did some research on that because clients at the time kept bringing it up, and I was like, how did this guy do it so cheap? Guy spent $5,000 on that video, but he was taking improv classes in New York at the time. He was the sole approver of his own script. He hired a friend to do the shoot, who did it for free, and he used his own warehouse, his own employees, and most of the money was spent on like props and things like that. So, 27 million views later, huge bang for the buck. Eventually sold the company, I think, to Gillette or somebody. But great ROI on that.
I was going to say too, I mean, in regards to process, sometimes in budget is that sometimes when you don't have as many levels or layers of review or as many people involved in approving the video, it can go, a lot quicker. You can kind of do things a little bit more spontaneously than you would if you have like a bigger corporation or something, or with lots of people who have to approve it. So I think that's something else obviously to keep in mind with the timeline and the budget and the amount of revisions and so forth that can range quite a bit.
I'd
Yeah,
say
good
one other
point.
thing, if you're able to do it, we've found a lot of times that after the concept or the first round of scripting is done and we really have a sense of what the video is going to be, is a great time to either revisit the budget or then propose what the budget for production and everything is. That oftentimes budgets really do depend on how that script and storyboard comes together. So I always go back to the Corning one just because it was such a big beast, but we never could have priced it until we had that sort of concept in mind. And even then, a lot of it was like, here's an estimate for props. We may need more, we may need less, we'll let you know, because we had to manufacture everything. But having some of that flexibility and in the past, in projects Todd and I have worked on in our other lifetimes, is when you propose concepts, you can also within that say, this one costs between a here and a here, and this concept will take you from these price ranges. So you're not going in blind, but you don't have a firm budget until you really know what you're doing. I know that can be hard sometimes with leadership, but it is one of the few places where having a small budget to get you through that concepting phase can really help nail down what you end up needing in the long run. And so there's not disappointment. So you say, I only have $10,000 and you just got to make it work. And it's just not possible for what you want. So that's just always helpful. Pardon me. I'm one of those, I could talk video all day. I love doing video. There are times where I miss working in video all the time. And then I remember working in sports television may sound great, but it isn't not a good existence for life. But if you have other questions on video, our plan is we've recorded this if you decide you want to watch it again, but we will send the deck out to everyone who was invited to the Lunch and Learn. And if you have questions, feel free to ask me because I love talking video. Video is one of my favorites. But if there are no other questions now, we can let everyone go back and finish their lunch or start their lunch or whatever they are doing. And really appreciate everyone being here, listening to me wax poetic on the topic of video.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thanks for inviting us.
You as
Thank
well.
you.